90-day maximum waiting period. Now this may seem like, well, so what? But many firms who have high turnover, a common requirement was they had a 6-month waiting period. And that made it easier to assess who's going to be in a plan before they actually put them in, and had to go through the complications of COBRA and getting them enrolled and contributing. That's going away. You can own, the maximum you can have is a 90-day waiting period. If you have a situation where you have part-time employees who morph into full-time, they give you a little bit of latitude to assess them over a 12-month period before the 90-day waiting period starts.
To give you an example, we have a trucking firm that has over 180 employees. Their turnover rate is probably about 30%. And what for help? He's got a 6-month waiting period. He's had it for 7 years. Starting next year, this is next year.
Next
14.
year.
He's got to restructure his whole compliance on this issue alone. He's freaking out. Yeah. Because that changes the whole dynamic of how he can treat his employees. Because it takes time to train them, see if they can stay. It's a tough one. So this is a pretty significant.
It is. And again, what we're doing here is getting you prepared for 2014 by giving you an idea of what you have to accumulate as data in 2013. Tom?
Oh wait, because
Okay.
what if you hire, what about this case, if they hire somebody on I don't want to say a trial basis, what do you call it, apprenticeship basis, or is that counted in the 90?
If they're a W-2 employee,
That's it.
the clock starts. Right. Okay. Preventive care for women.
Why don't you let Liz tell?
Liz, yeah, why don't you take this one?
The Preventive Care for Women Act, the new guidelines for preventive care for women came down on August 1st, 2011, effective January 1st. Must provide coverage for women's preventive health services without any cost sharing, applies to non-grandfathered plans, no deductible co-payment or co-insurance, and the effective for plan years beginning on or after August 1st, 2012. What this is really speaking to is, prior to this, with the healthcare reform, if you went to your PCP for a well check, you paid no copay, so long as your doctor coded it correctly as a preventive visit. Now, it's reaching as far as women's annual OBGYN checks. The law goes further into covering domestic violence screenings, breastfeeding equipment, lactation specialists, etc., with that encompassing all of different aspects of women's healthcare that, to be quite honest with you, I wasn't even all that aware of myself. But there's no cost sharing involved with these benefits. Oral contraceptives, which has caused a lot of debate with religious employers, that they're now working on criteria for that, where certain religious employers can opt out of that specific regulation of the preventive aspect for women's care.
I had kids at the wrong time.
Pardon?
I had kids at the wrong time.
Any questions? Tom? Increased Medicare tax. I told you I wasn't going to talk about taxes, but this one is pretty germane because it's slippery. Medicare tax rate to increase for high earners. Right now it's a 0.9% increase from 1.5% of payroll to 2.35% of payroll on an incremental amount. High earner threshold is a single for $200,000 and a family at $250,000. Now, I say it's a slippery concept because if you have two earners both making $190,000, they're not going to slip into the higher withholding, but at the end of the year, they're going to be responsible for the incremental tax. Okay? It is. The employer is only responsible to withhold the additional amounts over $200,000. So again, if you have two earners making close to that, you're going to get tagged for the additional. There's no requirement to notify employees. So if you get people storming your office saying, "Why'd you take out an additional?" That's why. Somebody had a question? I heard? No? Okay. Health FSA, flexible spending. How many people here have flexible spending accounts? Okay, great. I hope you're all taking advantage of it. Current limits, there's no limit on the amount you can put away for health care. As you know, there are three aspects to an FSA, a flexible spending account. That's health care, child care, and travel and commuting. This only affects the health portion of it. Even though there's no limit, many employers impose a limit because if you have, somebody puts in $10,000, spends the $10,000 in January, they leave, there's no obligation to repay that to the plan. So many employers had put a reasonable limit, but now the government's taken over that part. And they say that in 2013, this past January, the limit is $2,500 a year per person. Okay? The limit is indexed for later years, so it'll go up a little bit each year. Applies to plan years beginning on or after 1/1/13. So many plans still.
Does that $2,500 a year for just the employee or the employee plus
Employee
all their
plus,
benefits?
right.
Which is it for?
Excuse me?
For the employee or just for the employee and all
The
the
most
dependents?
any employee can put into a plan is $2,500.
Why is that 12 dependents? Doesn't
$2,500. But if you have a husband and wife in a plan, each can put in $2,500 into their own FSA.
Oh, but not for the same employer. No.
Well, even the same employer.
Even the same.
Right. This is an individual situation. Again, doesn't apply to dependent care FSAs or the commutation FSAs. Okay. Any questions on that aspect? Great, Tom. This year, at some time in the future, as it says here, it was supposed to have been handed out March 1st, but that's been postponed. Currently, it's been postponed to October 1st, but even that's in flux. You must notify your new and current employees of the coming availability of a healthcare exchange. Now, we're not going to cover healthcare exchanges here. We're going to cover it in another section. But as I said, this is in 2013, so I wanted to bring it up here. The notice must include information about the 2014 changes, existence of a health benefit exchange, whatever that may be at this point. And they've changed it. It's no longer called a health benefit exchange. It's called a health benefit marketplace, a kinder, gentler word. The potential eligibility for subsidies under the exchange. A risk of losing employee contributions if an employee buys coverage through an exchange. Very important point. If you contribute to a plan and somebody goes to the exchange, you don't have to contribute toward that anymore. More guidance and model notice is expected someday in the future. Tom? Okay, and now we're going to get into the 2014 plan design changes. This is the big year. Since 2011, we've been dripping changes in the healthcare. 2014 is the big year. Pre-existing conditions exclusion, we covered that briefly. The way it looks right now, and I'll talk about this in a minute, if you decided you don't want any health coverage, you just don't want to get involved with it, and you go with that, you're willing to pay the penalty, whatever that might be, and you get diagnosed with diabetes, heart condition, cancer, whatever, you can go to your employer or go to the exchange and say, I want in a plan now, and get full coverage without a pre-existing conditions limitation. Now, there's some movement afoot to make it the eligibility the same as Medicare, meaning you can only opt in, opt out once a year. Like Medicare, it's from October to December. That would be a vast improvement, and that would prevent a lot of the abuses that may come about. Again, currently, there in Jersey at least, there's no healthcare exclusions if you travel from one plan to another, and there's no more than a 63-day gap between the two plans. Healthcare reform changes that. Currently, since 2011, pre-existing conditions are prohibited for children under 19. In 2014, they're going to be prohibited for everyone. It applies to grandfathered and non-grandfathered plans. Very, very important concept, very important portion of the law. Any questions on it? Okay, Tom. Wellness program changes. Your plans may provide a reward for participating in wellness programs. I'm sorry.
Going back to previous,
Go ahead.
is there an obligation of an employee to divulge?
No. No, that's a HIPAA exclusion.
Okay, I'm hopeful about that.
No. And you have a condition. You're diagnosed with a condition. You go to the exchange, buy a plan, get covered, and then if it's something that's transient that you get rid of, you can drop the plan again. It's scary. It's a scary concept. Current rules for wellness program. Again, this is something that's been in place now since 2011. You can reward 20% of the cost of coverage for participating and remaining in participation in the plan. The program must be designed to promote health and preventive disease. Opportunity to qualify those with health issues. In other words, if you're diabetic and you enroll in a program, a dietary program that reduces your incidence of diabetes, you qualify for the reward. In 2014, the reward increases to 30% and up to 50% for smoking cessation. There's small business grants available to establish wellness programs. This is going to be a big industry next year, generating wellness programs. Okay. Tom? Limits on out-of-pocket expenses and cost sharing. This is going to apply to less than 50 employee groups. So the rest of you can go for a smoke if you want. Non-grandfathered group health plans subject to cost sharing and out-of-pocket costs. Out-of-pocket expenses may not exceed in high deductible health plans in 2012 of $6,050 for an employee, $12,100 for a family. In 2013 and years after, it gets indexed up a little bit. The big thing is deductibles may not exceed $2,000 for a single and $4,000 for a family. I'm sure a lot of you here have deductibles that could be as high as $2,500. Our Florida office has deductibles as high as $5,000 and $10,000 for a single, just to mitigate costs. That all goes away. If you're under 50 lives, it's $2,000, $4,000. And again, the limits are indexed for inflation. Again, it applies only to insured plans in the small group market. And in Jersey, again, that's 50 lives. 2014 coverage requirements. This is where it gets interesting. The individual mandate. Now, I got to stress, it's an individual mandate. It's not a corporate mandate. This is what an individual must comply with. In January of 2014, individuals must enroll in coverage or pay a penalty.
That's somebody who's not employed or working for a company that provides.
Anybody, right. The penalty is a dollar amount or a percentage of income. In 2014, it's simple. It gives everybody a soft landing. $95 or 1% of gross earnings. 2015, 2016, and it's capped at 300% of the adult flat dollar penalty or the bronze. We'll get into this in a little bit. The metal coverages, level premium. There was just a piece yesterday. I didn't get a chance to really go through it. That they further limited the penalties. Now, let's go back to our W-2s and our 1040s we talked about before. Starting in 2014, in 2015, on your 1040, there's going to be a line item. It's going to say, do you have health insurance? And if you say yes, you've got to provide the plan and the policy number. If you answer no, it's going to say you owe a $95 penalty. Now, the very interesting thing about it is the IRS has come out and said, we're not going to do anything to collect this fine. That's not our problem. But if you have a refund coming, they will deduct whatever it is from your refund. So it's kind of a toothless tiger.
It's a passive way of collecting it. In Massachusetts, I'm sorry to interject.
Go ahead.
They've been doing something similar to the family penalty cap, where you see the percentage of the bronze level. They've been doing something similar to this in Massachusetts for just about 5 years or so, where they find out the least expensive premium that you would pay for your gender and your age, and they would fine you, I believe it was 15% of the cost of the premium for every month you didn't have insurance. And you were fined that way, which was on the state level, but they were doing it a little bit more aggressively than the IRS plans to do it going forward.
And the IRS just come out and said, we're not going to have any part of this. We'll take it from their refund, but nothing else. This is, it's kind of hard to read up here, but we've included this slide in your package. It goes through who has to buy it, if you're part of a religious organization, if you have coverage, and so forth and so on, you don't have to buy it. If you're not part of that, it drops down and drops down, and if you have to buy it, what the penalties are. It's kind of a visual on what we just talked about in the prior slides. Any questions on that? Because it's going to be a big deal. Again, simply put, everybody must purchase or have health insurance.
What happens if I have a nephew who's unemployed, living in another state, has no insurance, 26-year-old, he's required
It's required.
to go on to on the system, to get through an exchange, he's not working,
Right,
to get insurance.
right. And we'll cover exchanges in a second.
If he doesn't, what happens?
He's subject to next year when he files his return, even the EZ form will have a line. Do you have insurance coverage? Okay, then if you say yes.
That's where the IRS kicks.
Right. Okay.
That's why I have 16,000 more agents.
Right. 18,000.
Regarding the obligation to tell your employees that the exchanges, is that no matter how many employees you have, or is that?
Yes. It's a simple thing. We'll prepare. We'll have them for you if you need them. We'll gladly provide it to you. It's a simple notice. This is what an exchange is. And we'll cover that in a minute. We'll see. Okay, Tom. Exchanges, again, the marketplace is a kinder, gentler word for it. It's web-based. Everybody's going to be familiar with this because it's web-based. Think Esurance, Orbitz, Priceline. However you buy your airline tickets now, you can buy your health insurance. You'll go on, you'll go online, you'll answer a few questions about yourself, your family, how old you are, what type of plan you want, and we'll get into that in a bit. And if you can't get through it, you'll be able to go to a navigator. Now, a navigator is, Tom, you want to be a navigator? Anybody can be a navigator. You don't have to be a licensed insurance agent. There's a few simple requirements. Can you breathe? Can you write? And you become a navigator. Okay? Can you handle a computer? It's easy. You don't have to be licensed. They're going to charge a fee. They're not going to be able to be commissioned. You're going to charge a fee. Now, the state plans can require, and we'll get into state, federal, whatnot, can require insurance agents to be a navigator. But the federal plans, again, they just say anybody can be a navigator if they pass our simple test. Coming to a store near you. In New Jersey, Horizon has 2 storefronts set up right now where you can go and buy individual coverage in preparation for the exchanges. United Healthcare is setting one up. United Healthcare has outlets in certain Walmart stores, certain Costco stores. So you buy your grapes, you can buy insurance. It gets simpler and simpler all the time.